Yes, great. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. This is a special co-presentation of Pan America and San Francisco Opera, discussing the upcoming world premiere performance of Huang Ruo, David Henry Hwang's Monkey King opera, which is going to premiere on November 14 in San Francisco with San Francisco Opera. So welcome. Before we get into the material, we actually would like to know where you're all tuning in from. If you could, we would love to know from you, like, oh, I'm tuning in from New York, I'm tuning in from San Francisco, and from Beijing or whatnot. So, feel free to write, where you're coming from. Yes, Philadelphia, Plano, Texas.
I'm coming in from San Francisco.
Yes.
I'm in New York.
I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
I'm in New York as well.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, New York City, Olympia, Washington, San Francisco, New York City, Plymouth, Michigan. Great. We have a lot of people attending from all different corners of the world. So that is great. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Thank you. We appreciate having you here. Quick reminders before we start the webinar and before I introduce these wonderful panelists to you. First of all, if you have questions and whatnot, please direct all of that into the Q&A section so that we, the staff and the moderator, will be monitoring it and will answer some of these questions right away accordingly, depending on the relevance. And also, before we start, I would like to talk a little bit about Pan America as well as our code of conduct doing these type of webinars. Pan America consists of 5,000 strong community of writers, translators, playwrights, screenwriters, librettists, educators, journalists, other writing professionals, and advocates throughout the US. And we've been, as an organization, for 103 years. Membership benefits for Pan America include discounts to events, special events such as this one, as well as access to exclusive resources, such as 1-year free trial subscription to Chicago Tribune and their 9 affiliates, discounted Zipcar membership, free Office Depot business membership, and most likely, the most important thing is actually opportunity to engage and connect and network with other members and professionals in the US and worldwide, such as through events like this. So if you're in this session and you're not yet a member, you're still very welcome here. And we encourage you to become a member today through following the link that we'll post in our chat. And if you have questions and whatnot, please put that in the chat as well. So about the code of conduct. Pan America and also San Francisco Opera, we aim to have our events be stress-free spaces for our panelists and the entire attendees. Racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, and any other form of disrespect, harassment, intimidation, hate speech will not be tolerated. And we retain the right to remind you as well, remove you from the webinar for anyone whose behaviors is considered rude, disruptive, or offensive to other attendees. We appreciate you respecting and abiding by this code of conduct for the benefit of all of the attendees. Again, if your behavior is abusive or deliberately disruptive, including actually chat postings, either directly to the panelists or to the other attendees, we retain the right to remove you from this webinar. Further, we aim to ensure our event a community of respect, learning, and exchange. We encourage you to participate in this webinar by sharing questions and experience that relate to the focus of today's session and not to use the platform for anything else that might actually be disruptive or offensive. Thank you so much. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our moderator, Ken Smith from Opera News. And yeah, Ken, go right ahead and yeah.
Thank you. Well, if you're here, you
yours.
need a lot of introduction to our panelists, but just as a start, David Henry Hwang, in the past year, was represented not only by Yellowface on Broadway, which received multiple Tony nominations, including a Tony Award for Francis Ju, but also Ina Damar at the Metropolitan Opera with composer Osvaldo Golihov, and the musical Soft Power at the Signature Theater in Washington, D.C. So that kind of covers a broad range. Huang Ruo, our composer of Monkey King, featured in the November issue of Opera Magazine, not only has a story on The Monkey King, a feature about the opera, but has a review of Book of Mountain and Seas, which is his first collaboration with Basil Twist, which was appearing at the Edinburgh Festival this summer, and also a review of his recording of An American Soldier, his first opera with David Hwang, which is currently up for Record of the Year at the International Opera Awards at the Greek National Opera in Athens on November 13th, the night before Monkey King opens. So it's been a busy time for Mr. Hwang, but also this came out even before the announcement of your next opera, which will be The Wedding Banquet, first in Seattle and then at the Met. So
Right.
yes, it's our man Huang Ruo has been extremely busy. Next, we also have Pearl Bergad on this panel, and Pearl has been, I would say, the real spiritual key impetus of this endeavor from San Francisco Opera. It's now a tradition with the Monkey King. Before it was just Dream of the Wren Chamber. Now it's a tradition of taking and embracing Chinese stories sung in English on the Western opera stage. And we're dealing with something here by definition. Well, it's a couple of definitions. One, we have translation, which is, taking the actual text and rendering an author's text as transparently as possible in a different language. And on the other end, we have adaptation, which is rendering the spirit of the author's intention as closely as possible in a different medium. And this is sort of falling a little bit in between the cracks of those. We'll call it a tradaptation, unless someone here has a better term for that. But we're talking about essentially 3 removes from the original novel, Journey to the West. One is the Chinese language and culture into English. Secondly is dynastic China, a very different time, very different world, into 21st century audiences coming to the opera house. And third, which is maybe not so obvious to some people out there, is the form, changing a novel into opera. Now, opera has a very distinguished heritage, and that can actually be a burden to something like this. First of all, because people have a preconceived notion of what opera is. They might not think of it as contemporary or relevant, or in English for that matter. But it's also a burden for some of the creators who have to compete not with their living peers, but also Verdi and Wagner and Mozart and Puccini. And that is something that I think weighs on the shoulders as well. So we want to talk a little bit about opera and why in many cases, it's uniquely able to do what it does. It puts it in a very different position compared to theater or film or television. And so before we get into, though, some of the discussion with the creators about why opera and why does this make a great opera, we should start with Pearl and just say, where did this whole idea come from? And I'm assuming when you first were thinking about this, opera was not your original concept.
I think it all started with the founding of the Chinese Heritage Foundation in Minnesota. This was started by a lady when she turned 80, recovering from open heart surgery and wanted to be grateful for all the life in Minnesota has given to her, and she wanted to give back. And so, and right from the start, we want to, the Chinese Heritage Foundation is to promote, preserve, and celebrate our Chinese heritage culture, but always in conjunction with some innovation. I mean, it's great. I mean, Dream of the Red Chamber is one of the most beloved novels in China. But how do we make that relevant to a 21st century contemporary audience was for us a challenge. And this is a challenge that David Henry Hwang, our librettist at the time, with composer Brett Shang. They were very daring. They made some changes to the story in order to bring this to have relevance to the contemporary audience. But they also kept the essence of the story, a tragic love triangle, and the fight of a young woman who wanted to be free. And they dealt with all the heartbreaking elements of the novel, but they looked at it from a contemporary lens. And that was why it was able to relate to the audience. And that is, of course, at the heart of the mission of the Chinese Heritage Foundation, how to find common ground with the contemporary audience and say, just come and look at this heartbreaking story and what can we all join together and talk about. And this is really the fundamental mission of the foundation, is to promote mutual understanding and to create trust among everyone. So that was the tall order for David and Bright at the time.
Well, I will say they started with an advantage because the characters, at least as it was distilled, there were some 400 characters in the novel. It went down into very clear operatic types. You have your clear mezzo, you have your soprano, you have your tenor. And so in that regard, it actually was a good way to.
Yes.
I'm going to open this up to the creators now and say, what does opera mean for you guys? First of all, how is it different writing an opera than it is, say, a play or a symphony or a film or TV? And what makes a good opera, and why did Monkey King seem to be a good opera idea?
Okay, I guess I'll start. I work in a lot of different narrative script forms, and I think there's two things about operas that are different from these other mediums that you're describing, Ken. Number one, there's a level of suspension of disbelief that is inherent in opera because it is the most stylized of those forms. And particularly the way we do, say, film and television here in America, everything is supposed to have a sort of the verisimilitude. Everything is supposed to be, real. And even if you're watching Star Wars, it's supposed to be real. And then you can extract that somewhat for a play because you're not seeing a real kitchen, even if it's a kitchen sink drama. And then you extract that even more for a musical, and opera is the most stylized form. And I think it means that audiences approach an opera very open in terms of the story, very willing to suspend their disbelief. And I think this is one of the advantages of opera from a writer's point of view. And the second thing is opera is, I think, fundamentally a composer's medium. And that the opera will rise and fall. Of course, the story, has to be good and characters need to be good, but I think the opera ultimately will rise and fall on the strength of the music. And I feel that one of my duties as a librettist is to try to create something that's going to help the composer do their best work. And on that note, I would hand it over to Huang Ruo because it was initially your idea to do Monkey King.
Thank you, David. I think it is collaboration always between the composer and librettist, and story and words are equally important as the music. In that sense, music is what I call is like the air in the room that does fill into every corner, and you not only have the singers singing them, the chorus singing them, but also the orchestra playing them. I often want to think of opera as drama in music. So it is for that reason, I think, yes, music should stand in order for the opera to stand. That's a lot of pressure for any composer. So I like to drag David into my world as well. So we will stand together in that sense. Now, opera to me does has abstraction more so than a play, but opera also is as realistic, even more so than a movie. Now, for example, I had this great conversation with the wonderful director An Lee once, and he was telling me he's using a lot of high tech to direct his next film, and this was maybe 5 years ago now. And you go to see Star Wars or Avita or all this or Life of Pi, you wear 3D glasses in order to feel real, to see a tiger has 4 dimensions. But when you are in a theater, has been thousands of years since the great Chinese or Greek civilization started theater. It's always been real. As the drama unfold in front of you, you see everything in 4D and space and time. When someone yelling at each other, you could see their split fighting into each other. Uh, and I think that says opera has duality. On one hand, it is real. It should make the audience feel they are in it. They are in front of it. They are part of the drama. They are part of the story, but also it has suspense. Now, in great opera by Verdi or other composers or Mozart, you have a moment, 4 or 6 characters singing, each singing different things, and they're all singing together, and the audience could understand each of them. So in a play, if 6 people talking at the same time, you might have a hard time to understand each of what they are saying. So how could this happen? Now, because of music. In opera, we have something called motifs. So we build a musical motive for each character, for what they are thinking, what their thought, what they're feeling, what their emotion, what they're saying. And then we introduce them one by one, and then we overlap them. So then at the end, when you have all 6 of them being overlapped, then you could just, it's like a flipping TV channel as well. You could, okay, now I want to focus that person, that person, that. So suddenly, this whole thing becomes so surreal. You have 6 people singing their mind, not towards each other, but towards you. And you could feel them, you could relate to them. So that is the abstraction of opera. And that's what make me love writing opera, being in this art form, is it play with realism and surrealism, playing with suspense and also real time, so magically. And of course, as creators of this art form, it is our duty as well to give that to the audience.
Okay, so we build on that because you get a good introduction to opera, I think, for people out there who might not be so familiar with the form as, say, your average movie. But let's talk about some specific examples of how you treat something in opera as opposed to how it might be done in the movies or in theater or other kinds of forms. Can you think of specific moments that become very operatic in this show?
David?
Huang Ruo, you have an idea? Okay, I thought you had an idea.
No, I do have one, but I want to let you go first. Otherwise I could jump in first.
You jump in.
Okay. Now, one example is in opera we have something called aria and recitative. Now, although this is a very centuries old tactics, composers from Monteverdi, Handel, right? So all these great Western opera composers. And don't forget, Chinese opera actually is has longer history than the Western opera. And we also have aria and recitatives, but we don't call it that way, of course. Now, in operatic terms, what I love about the moment of these 2 differences is recitative basically is dialogue with music and to move the drama moving forward. And
yes,
exactly. And the aria is when a character frozen in time to express feelings, to share emotions, to tell you the inside of that person. And to me,
so in theater, that would be the to be or not to be moment from Hamlet.
right, exactly, monologue, right?
Yeah.
Now, then suddenly everything froze. You understand when a singer singing an aria, the time the clock stops, and that becomes surrealistic. Now, in movie, normally, it go by seconds. It go by, so it's hard to pull that off if a character just like frozen there to think for 3 minutes, 4 minutes. All you see is that person's face and a monologue, and they will cut that. So I think it's just different art form requires different tactics. But in opera, we have this suspense, we have this frozen in time that actually with music, we transform the words, we enrich the words. That, sometimes even the music is repetitive, like a da capo aria, but the audience at the end they walk away with that, and even that is a magical moment
So can
for
you give an
someone to see it
example
on.
can you give an example from the show? From either the Monkey King or maybe Guan Yin,
I mean,
his
yes, I was going to say that
Mhm.
so in our Monkey King opera, we have several different arias that are sung sporadically throughout the aria by Guan Yin, the goddess of mercy. And she is singing the Diamond Sutra, which uh, the larger story of the novel Journey to the West is sort of an allegory for how Buddhism came to China from India, and specifically the historical incident on which this is based. The many sutras were brought, including this Diamond Sutra that we have incorporated into our opera. So the notion that the narrative kind of stops for these arias that Guan Yin sings from a different source. I didn't write them. They're from the Diamond Sutra. They're in Chinese. They're not in English. But that this creates a sort of beautiful and complementary musical moment that enhances, at least we think it does, enhances the overall story and feeling and depth of the opera. That's something that I don't think you can do in a play or a musical or a movie.
Well, it certainly changes the feeling, the flow of the piece. You have the moments where you really hunker down and get an emotional depth that you might not have elsewhere.
Mhm.
I mean, the thing that
And a spiritual depth
Yeah.
also, because that is in the background
Mhm.
of this very sort of fantastic, magical superhero story we're telling.
Yeah.
And Ken, another example quickly I could give you is David always tell me the 11th hour aria. And
11,
in the
11 o'clock number.
clock, right? So we also have one there in the Monkey King. Is for those of you who are familiar or not familiar with the story, at the end, Monkey King, as powerful as he is, he was captured by Buddha, who played a trick with him, saying, "If you could escape my palm, you will live. If not, I will imprison you." So Monkey King, of course, was trapped by Buddha. But before that, he felt he fly far, far away. He entered this land of bliss, this beautiful place. He sees nobody, but is beautiful, is warm, is peaceful, no war, right? So now in a movie, you might just show some beautiful landscape, and then you have the character, oh, this is so beautiful, and that's about it. But in opera, here we want to show the the meaning of arriving in the paradise alone is not truthfully finding the paradise. You need to come with others to help others come to paradise together. So that's our central message of our Monkey King opera. So then David brilliantly set that up as an aria, uh, uh, libretto, telling saying how beautiful this place is, full of warmth, and there's no war, feel at peace, but yet my heart feels alone. And so then how to use music to tell that? So then we created a 3 minutes aria. And yes, I don't think in movie you could just have someone staring at the landscape for 3 minutes. Or in play, you talk for 3 minutes. Maybe that's a little bit too long. But in music, in opera, that actually is a good frozen moment, right? We talk about the frozen moment of time and space. For the Monkey King to express, and after he sung this beautiful aria, and what happened, according to the novel, we're being faithful here, is he wrote down 8 characters. Monkey King, came here in person, but in Chinese it's 齐天大圣到此一游. He wrote on the third finger of the Buddha, and then he peed on the thumb, the bottom, the thumb of the Buddha's palm, but he thought was the mountain. That's what happened. And then after he done all that, Buddha reveals, you are still in my palm. So this is a very dramatic moment. So you want to wait for that surprise punchline of Buddha revealing, you are still in my palm. But before that, we take time to show the audience how beautiful this place is, how lonely Monkey King felt, although he is in the paradise. And then suddenly you have this thing drop on him. So that contrast, I think it will create a very strong and important effect on the audience.
Now, in terms of telling this story, and often the medium is the message, as we've been told over the decades. How is what you do here different from how you would do something in a film or on a regular stage? What are you bringing to the table for opera specifically? And I think David has more experience with different forms of narrative media.
I mean, the challenge really to doing Monkey King is that it is so much of an action movie in a lot of ways, just in terms of having huge battles and magical creatures and flying through great distances. And so one of the challenges of putting this on stage is, okay, how do you portray this in a theatrical fashion? How do we make this come to life on stage? As Huang Ruo was saying a moment ago, that the audience can see it in their minds in 4 dimensions. And then how do you convey a story with so much action through a libretto and through the music? And I think the way that we've approached this for opera, which would be different from other mediums, is number one, really leaning into the kind of spiritual foundation on which all these fantastical, magical things are built, so that it has a kind of coherence which the music is able to sustain, and which the music enhances and really makes us feel. And that's something that would not be an approach in these other mediums. And then the other thing is, it just really took a team of very gifted, very motivated, and very skilled collaborators, like director Diane Paulus, like our puppeteer, and
twist.
and set designer Basil,
Mhm.
in order to bring all these to life.
Mhm.
Well, that's you touched on a couple of things, but let's go with the collaboration angle, because I remember many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, said the difference between opera and musical theater was, well, if it's done in an opera house, it's an opera, and if it's done in a musical context and in that sort of supporting element, then it's theater. And I thought he was just dodging the question, but in retrospect, I realized he was correct. The level of way things are done depends on, in an opera house, a very specific level of interaction with people on different forms and bringing things to the table. What you see in the past 20 years has been sort of a blurring in that regard. Now, Monkey King, you would not normally expect an opera to have a puppeteer or a Peking opera consultant, or any of a number of things that this particular show is adding to the picture. Can you talk about, though, how it's different in opera and how this particular collaboration has come about in terms of bringing the story with all the martial arts and other flashy stuff that does not really exist in, say, La Boheme or Marriage of Figaro?
Mhm. Is that a question for me?
Yeah.
That's for you.
Both of you, actually. Yeah, but we'll start with you.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, just question also related to the difference between opera and film. Yes, opera is a complex, unique art form. Just to say, aside from operas bring out the four dimensions, as well explained earlier, the film you do need to have 3D glasses to feel real. Another thing is, I think opera also is a place about less is more. Now, imagine you are staring at a magic box. The box is only this big. That's the stage right in front of you. And you need to create the heaven. Now, in our Monkey King, we have the heaven, we have the ocean. Under the ocean, we have the Dragon King Palace. We have the collapse of the ocean because Monkey King took the golden staff, supports the ocean. And we have the mountain of fruits and flowers, you know. So we have three rims of our universe, all happening in the San Francisco Opera stage. With a film, you could say we film everything in a studio. That's also one box. But then you have multiple camera, you have animation, you have a computer, this or that to create that motion capture. But with opera, everything is done mostly in you know how should I say, instead of big machines, we use hand labors, puppeteers, silks, you know, those wonderful puppetry by Basil Twist. Also, we do have projection. So when you project things on puppetry, so it becomes 3D, it becomes more dimensional than just project in a flat screen. So that's also make our stagecraft more real than just looking at a film. Now, back to your question of a musical. Musical, I think, to break it down simpler is a set of songs. It's kind of like a song cycles, beautiful songs, the dialogues or, wordings connecting them. The stanza involved this or that. Yes, great musicals, I'm thinking particularly with Sangham's musicals. It's done in opera house, becomes opera. If it's done in Broadway, it's a musical. But I think nowadays our audience has so many device, so many ways to see things than just going attend a traditional theatrical production. So I think both musical and opera also involve uh, projection, technology in that sense. So it does blur the line a little bit. And in opera, we also have dance. In the Monkey King, we have fabulous Peking opera style dance, but also we have kung fu. So I was half jokingly tell a reporter the other day we are doing a magical kung fu opera. which is unlike anything else. So in that sense, if the Monkey King is done on Broadway, I could see it as a musical, and if it's because it has all the elements needed, and but if it's done in opera house, of course, it's an opera. Just to say that also this is not we invented it, but actually in traditional Chinese opera, Peking opera or Cantonese opera, the singers does dance while singing, and also we do have fighting movements in those traditional Chinese opera. They are not necessarily singing while fighting, but I think in Chinese opera, a singer is expected to be doing more multitasking than, let's say, a European opera singer doing La Bohème or doing doing a ring cycle. So yeah, so I think that tradition we try to carry that through and to our Monkey King opera. But of course, everything is originally invented. Those fighting moves, those kung fu moves, but based on a tradition.
Yeah. We have one question that came through, and I'll just deal with this myself because it is a question of is this in English or Chinese? The question is yes, it is in English with some Chinese elements, and the Diamond Sutra, which we just discussed, is sung in Chinese in many different forms and permutations in the opera itself, but everything will be in English and Chinese projected surtitles above the screen.
Right.
So that in that regard, it's a very inclusive linguistic show. To continue this thought a little bit, when we're talking about the collaboration, we move into different stages, and that is another way that opera is different from musical theater or film or anything because of the way of the different stages of bringing in and developing collaborations. And also in terms of the payment, in terms of workshops, in terms of how do you fund these kind of things. So I'm very curious. Well, the pay structure, first of all, in classical music is much more upfront. In musical theater, there's a lot of back end of residual payments that come in later. But in terms of just getting things from point A to point B, how do you work on workshops? And is this part of the opera house, or does this rely on additional funding? How do you approach that and get this moving? So say you have a great idea for the Monkey King. How did step 1, step 2, step 3 come about?
Yes, David.
Oh, no, you do it.
No, I just want to acknowledge the.
David certainly compare that with theater, for example. But yeah.
I just want to acknowledge Pearl and her Chinese Heritage Foundation so generously supported our commission with a heart to believe in what we do, but also the value of adapting Chinese classics into a Western operatic art form. So with that being said, David, please go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was, of course, going to also acknowledge Chinese Heritage Foundation. That was really the first step after Huang Ruo decided, he wanted to do a Monkey King opera. And then we talked about it. And I had always, I've been approached to do different iterations of and adaptations of Journey to the West. One of which is particularly bad, actually. It was a television movie that I'm very ashamed of. But anyway, but I always, where it came to trying to make it into a stage piece, I always had this problem because I feel like, okay, the original novel is so episodic. Monkey has this opening section, Monkey Makes Havoc in Heaven, where he gets introduced. And then he becomes essentially the guardian and fan favorite character of these 4 figures who are led by a monk who are going to travel to India to bring back these sutras. And they have a lot of adventures and face a lot of enemies, many different monsters. But how do you tell this story in a way that has some narrative drive to it? Now, Monkey Makes Havoc in Heaven is a great self-contained section, but it happens to end with Monkey trapped, as Huang Ruo is alluding to, sort of under a mountain, which are the fingers of Buddha. So it doesn't actually have a particularly happy ending for Monkey. And this led to, so I was like, I don't know how to do it. And but Huang Ruo, who grew up with this story, had an idea about how to do it. So now I'm handing it over to you.
Oh, that's my cue.
Yes.
Well, I guess you need to come to see our opera to find out. But in short, I think in order to find the answer how to deal with the ending for the Monkey King opera, I think one just need to look at the overall structure of the novel. That they are traveling to India, but in the novel is the pure land of bliss where Buddha and his disciples stays to collect sutras. But the goal is to help to bring those sutras back to China to share, to help everyone. So I think for that reason, the Monkey King is about his enlightenment for not only for wisdom but also for compassion. It's not only him but also it's the monk, it's everybody, and I think with that in mind, so I think in order for Monkey to come out from the containment of the Buddha's palm, the 5-element mountain, we have Guan Yin and Buddha Sufa choir chanting the Diamond Sutra to the Monkey King throughout the opera as plot points in different spots. And then David chose the texts which build on one from another and deepening the meaning until the end. We have these A words which are chanted by this chorus. In the San Francisco Opera, they have this wonderful chorus chanting almost like you hear this sound come from afar. Those A words are in Chinese is 因无所住而生其心, which means let go of all attachments in your heart, in one's heart, to make room for the heart of wisdom and compassion. So I think in operatic tactic, we have the Monkey King to join the chorus to sing, which symbolizing he at last opened his heart to accept the sutra, to understand that meaning. So the moment he starts singing with the choir, it was such a touching moment. I actually had tears in my eyes when I wrote that part. I felt it personally. It's nothing complex, just a simple, you join them to sing. And then at that moment, the mountain suddenly opens up and he got it. He got his enlightenment at that moment to understand the meaning assigned him next for the journey to the West. So that I think is our strategy. Yeah.
I wish we had photos to show all this right now, but we're still, the rehearsal process is still actually early on.
Mhm.
We do have some photos, however, of the rehearsal process. And I think if we can actually get a little of those up on the screen, we can take a look. And I'm not sure if you were there during the rehearsal, Huang Ruo, but if you or David have something to add to this, we can certainly keep the voiceover so that we can.
I do want to jump in as you show
Yes.
these rehearsal photos that ever since these novels, Dream of the Red Chamber or Journey to the West appeared, there began in China just all kinds of adaptations of these novels. So it has become a time-honored tradition to adapt these stories to whatever the contemporary thinking or devices available to get these stories out. Now, in China, it could be just a street corner to a theater. And now what David and Huang Ruo have been able to do is to bring in all the modern day, technology or whatever to bring a particular perspective of these stories to the opera stage. And as far as collaboration is concerned, it is most important to get an opera house who loves these ideas and that these things fit into their mission of multiculturalism or whatever they want to expand the reach of the opera stage. And I can't say enough for what former general director David Gockley and current director Matthew Schofog, how they have really thrown all of the resources into these Chinese stories and to bring them alive for the contemporary audience. I think, the Chinese Heritage Foundation cannot have asked for a better collaboration among the artistic team and the opera house.
Well, it's very interesting, and we have some photos here. And one of the things that Huang Ruo mentioned earlier is the fact that in Chinese opera, there is much more, I won't say dance, but movement. Movement is always connected to the singing and in these forms. And in this regard, and there are breaks for physical movement, a lot of times martial arts, that correspond with some of the dance movements in the choreographed ballet moments in Western opera. But this, in a way, is sort of blurring some distinctions between Eastern and Western opera. Were you here during this period, Huang Ruo, during this rehearsal?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
What are we looking at?
So here is the in one of the battle scene, Monkey is fighting with Lord Erlang, and Monkey at first is not as equal to Lord Erlang, so he is trying to run away from Lord Erlang. So he at this photo here, he changed his appearance into a snake. And Lord Erlang saw that, and then he transformed himself into a crane, try to capture and eat the snake. So what we did here is, if you look far enough, there is a singer holding a weapon. So that is the singer, Lord Erlang. And on this side, which you did not see, is Monkey King. So the snake and the crane kind of like their avatars. So they are fighting on stage while two singers are on two sides to also acting and singing, commenting on it, to controlling it. So so that is what this scene is about. And of course, this is a rehearsal, so we don't have the orchestra, but we have the chorus. They're not in custom yet. So you see these two groups of troops fighting each other. On the stage left, so that's on your right side of your photo there, you see the chorus holding weapons. They are the heavenly soldiers. On stage right, which is on the left side of your photo, you see chorus member holding sticks. They are the monkey nation. So they will be wearing monkey costumes and with masks, everything. So in this, what I call the magical box, you divide the stage into two halves, and then you have two troops. One is from the heaven, one is from the earth, the monkey fighting the heavenly soldiers. And then the guy with the stick, that is the Monkey King. And the person in a red shirt, that is Lord Erlang. So these are the dancers. They are fighting each other, while the singers are singing on the side. Yeah.
Well, this is really interesting because it looks like you're going to have a lot of projections, a lot of high-tech stagecraft. And we're looking at what looks like silk being wrapped around and flown on stage, and very old school, low-tech theater, all coming together to tell this story. And that, I think, kind of is metaphoric for this whole idea. You have what is essentially, yes, martial arts, but also a Buddhist allegory wrapped up in this tale. You have a lot of very uniquely well, of all time, timeless human interest in this, and a human story of a rebellious youth who finds discipline and then hunkers down and really develops, which is relevant to basically any time. But as Pearl said, you did a lot of work here, and the goal is to make it really resonate in contemporary times specifically. So what can you tell us some of the things that you've really brought into this story that resonate today, and very particularly today, as opposed to maybe 30 years ago or 100 years ago? Let's start with the script.
I think that one of the things that I'm very interested in with this story, particularly for an audience, and I do not read Chinese, so I had to read the original in translation. And so I'm, coming from very much a Western/American perspective. And it seems to me that this is not how the West normally thinks of the Chinese character. We over here tend to think of the Chinese character as being, modest or self-effacing and polite. And Monkey is sort of completely the opposite of that. Monkey is the id, if you will, of the Chinese character. The impulsive, egotistical, self-aggrandizing many times figure who nonetheless ends up being part of a transformative spiritual journey. So it's a redemption story in many ways, which is really sort of profound and moving. And I think that it's interesting how this character has become so beloved. Pearl was mentioning throughout the centuries, has become so beloved by China, by other nations in Asia, and even now with the success of the video game Wukong all around the world. So I'm interested in the way that interfaces with how how Americans see China and the Chinese character. And, in our interpretation of this story, the Jade Emperor's Palace, the Emperor of Heaven, the Jade Emperor's Palace is actually a rather corrupt place. And you can decide to apply that however you want to governments that are existing today.
Well, very, very good. You also
could I just also
Monkey King is a total brat.
Yeah.
I mean, really, is there a way that you have modernized trying to tell that story that resonates, or with the character himself, or is it kind of true to the original?
Well, I think it's true to the original, but also a few things I want to mention is, of course, I grew up with the Monkey King character, but after I came to America, I realized actually the Monkey King also, in a way, in a magical way, symbolizing the American exceptionalism. In that sense, one with one's ability try to achieve many things. Monkey King was born from a rock, nothing is not from a god or goddess. It's just born from a rock, and he has to learn everything and to get everything. He wants to fight for his own place in in the heaven. When they don't have a place for him, he want to get that place through his own fighting. So that to me is is quite resonating with today. But also another thing I think is very important to know is the opera is also about what does it mean to have power, to deal with power. And that is as old as humankind and as contemporary as today, particularly timely today when we have so many wars going on in our world, when we have people suffering. And so the Monkey King, he want to be powerful. he want to get power. He want to learn to be powerful. But later on, he learned from his teacher, power alone is not enough. And David brilliantly put in those lines, power is given to be given away. So only when you let go of power to share power with more people. And at the end, of course, when our 8 words from the Diamond Sutra are coming in, is to let go of your own ego, let go of your own attachment to power, longevity, all these things Monkey King want to have, and then at that moment, your heart could have the space and room for compassion for others. And yes, helping others to achieve together is the way to happiness and to land of bliss. So that is not just a Chinese ancient message, but it's a universal message of today. I feel very, very strongly about that.
I think that's a very key idea and entry point into this opera.
Mhm.
I know that you have to leave here very soon, Huang Ruo. You have to plane to another country, to another project, and you are coming back. I really hope so.
Yes.
But before you leave, I'm curious if you are going to, if people come to you and David and say, I want to do an opera, how do I do that? I mean, what do you tell them? Is this something that you can still rely on opera companies to take care of each step of the way and the funding, or do you have to go out and really help secure stuff and how do you go about doing that? In terms of workshopping, in terms of extra funding, in terms of
Right.
finding collaborators and bringing them in, how does that all work?
Well, normally I would jump into any question, but this is not my strength, I should say. But since I'm leaving soon, I will give you my 2 cents. I think it's true that particular of our world today, no matter what country, particularly in America today, funding is very hard to get. Now we did not have much government support funding to start with. Uh, and uh, uh, and with opera houses, I think almost every opera houses is having funding challenges, to say the least. However, the upside of that is I think our audience are craving to see new operas, to see new shows, because there's such a diverse body of new opera coming from creators from different communities, telling different stories they believe in, they want to champion. So then we have a very diverse pool of stories, truly resembling who we are, the American, and in that sense, I think there is this gap of not enough funding, but yet there are many excellent stories and creators out there want to write opera, want to tell the stories. But I think the key thing is to find a very, very compelling stories to tell first. I always think that is the most important thing. It's like you want to make a delicious dish, but you need to know what you want to make first, and then you go to get the ingredients. So once you have that project. Now, not every story is suitable for opera. Just want to put that out as well. Uh, Once you have a good story, could be done as an opera, then I think you are looking for the soulmate, artistic soulmate, uh, from opera company or from opera directors or from foundation like Pearl's Foundation, to open their ears to listen to you, and in hope that they could resonate with your message and your story, um, and together to talk to more people. So I think it is people always say it takes a village to make an opera. I would say it takes the entire city to make an opera. And by the way, just seeing how excellent the San Francisco Opera is doing so far, it does energize the different communities in San Francisco, not only the Chinese community, but also Asian communities. And David and I, we are planning to do a lot of talks. Also, there's a great educational department. It's really reaching out. And that's what I think opera should be. It's not an entertainment only. It's not a few nights event, but it is movement. It is a a call for action to really bring people together, to support, to celebrate, to remember afterwards, and in hope that when we look back, we are in a better place than when we started it. So I think with all that, hopefully there will be funding support to come along the way. But start with, we need to believe in what we do.
Yeah. So you're basically saying that there is no one-stop method of funding an opera. You have to have an idea and find
Yeah.
your family as you go along.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David, how does that does the funding for opera that you've seen compare with funding for theater works?
Oh, well, we could get into a whole discussion of the economics of Broadway right now, but I think we should stay away from that for the moment. I feel like one of the things when people come to me, or writers, as opposed to composers, when authors come to me and want to write an opera, I often tell them it would be good to find a composer. It's not impossible to get a project going solely as a librettist, but really most of the institutions that will fund opera, that will produce opera, are um, first and foremost, I would say, interested in the composer's voice. And I think that Huang Ruo is actually very good at this, at finding institutions that are like-minded and who are interested in his voice and supporting his music, and then finding projects that would be appropriate for them. And so the whole funding structure is, you have to fund, at the root, you have to get an opera company to be interested in at least developing the work. And there are several opera companies that do have programs now for young composers that are trying to develop new operas. And then you may also have a sort of wonderful angel patron like Chinese Heritage Foundation, which can help to support those early stages in the development.
Okay. And now I'll say one last pitch. If anyone has any questions who's watching now, please just send them into the chat room, and we can bring that into the conversation here. But I would like to ask Pearl something. You know, I'm trying to get the trajectory now of the Chinese Heritage Fund. We've started out with Dream of the Red Chamber, and as an opera, this was in some ways, I mean, it portrayed a book club, more or less, a reading circle in a way, as well as a big family dynamic. But we've gone from that to a Buddhist allegory that is basically a circus in Monkey King. And so these are, you know, polar opposite extremes of the Chinese literary tradition, but they're all part of the same tradition. Where do we go from here?
I think there are 2 points that both of these operas talk about that are actually the same. And one is that is a journey, a personal journey of enlightenment for either Bao Yu in Dream of the Red Chamber or the monkey in Monkey King. And it also points out that, you know, different personalities obviously go through a different journey, you know. In the monkey's case, it took 500 years under the Buddha's thumb before he could get out of himself and then see the bigger picture. So I think that the lesson for all of us is that we all go through our own journeys, and where the points of reflection and contemplation for us is different for everyone. But somehow we need to take some time out and get out of ourselves, and then maybe the bigger picture will dawn on us how we should go forward. So that's a very relevant lesson for all ages, but you know, definitely for our current situation. And the other one is on innovation. You know, Bao Yu is as traditional as anybody comes, but the monkey is rebellious. So how does a traditional strict Chinese family deals with something like this? And I want to, there's a Chinese saying that comes to mind, and that's a saying that all teachers, in Kung Fu in particular, or in any other discipline, is that they want to remind you that the color purple grows out of the color blue. So even though, we want you to stick to traditional values, we also recognize that it's out of that restrictive tradition. These things happen, and when they happen, we embrace them. And that's really what the final story is that we embrace all communities. But we do need to take a step back somewhere along the line. We don't know where that time is. It's different for everyone, but to be able to take the time and take a step back, and then maybe the bigger picture will dawn on us how to move forward. And the Chinese Heritage Foundation is thrilled to be able to, present traditional beloved stories, and perhaps we'll find the common ground and move forward.
Well, very good. We have a couple of comments that have popped into the chat room. One asking for information if they can't make it to the show. And yes, indeed, there is a live stream performance on the 18th, and it will be available for a bit of time afterwards. Details are on the San Francisco Opera website. So please Google that, find the website, the details will be there. Secondly, someone suggested that the Merilla program, which is the Young Artist program at San Francisco Opera, should have a program for an opera composer and librettist. That's above our pay grade here, but that's certainly a great idea to get some sort of thing moving there. What we have not done here, unfortunately, until now, is give a little audio sample of what's coming up. And this is, I should say, not, I don't think, a representative sample of the opera as a whole, because it is one of the aria moments, but it is very much a key part of the show, because this music comes back in many different incarnations and ideas, and not just as an aria, but as a choral setting, as a part where Monkey joins in. This is a setting of the Diamond Sutra. And would you like to talk a little bit about that, David, since
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier, we intersperse Guanyin, the goddess of mercy, singing from the Diamond Sutra with a chorus of bodhisattvas throughout the opera. And this particular part of the Diamond Sutra is called All Dharmas Are Created Equal. It takes place after Monkey has descended into the seas to try to find his ideal weapon from the Dragon King. And the Dragon King has this great arsenal of weapons, but none of them are acceptable to Monkey King. They're all too light, too light, too light. He wants something heavier. And finally, the Dragon King's really just trying to get rid of him. And he says, okay, here's this pillar that's holding up the sea. And if you can lift that up, then that can be your weapon, you can take it. And Monkey manages to shrink the pillar. The pillar and Monkey have a kind of immediate connection to each other. And he shrinks it to a size that it can fit behind his ear. And that becomes his primary weapon throughout the rest of the novel and the show. But as a result, the ocean collapses and the Dragon King's palace is destroyed. You have to come see the opera to see how this happens on stage. And Monkey is then going to be, the Dragon King's going to, in the next scene, complain to the Jade Emperor about this monkey who he now alleges stole this pillar. And so All Dharmas Are Created Equal felt like, okay, this could go in this interlude, because it is about how Monkey's is about to go to a place, heaven, where he is not going to be considered an equal.
Okay, great. Well, if we can have this playing, it's about a 3 to 4 minute piece. I will just say goodbye right now to Pearl and to David, and thank you for your time. And let's sit back and listen to Zhang Migwei Zhang, who will be singing this on stage in the next few weeks. All dharmas are created equal. And again, thank you, Pearl. Thank you, David. This is Ken
Thank
Smith
you.
signing off. Bye-bye.
But